Okay, well, I did a little bit of a redesign on this thing because once I cut the leather, it was actually a little bit thicker than I had anticipated. The idea was 7 to 8 ounce, but this piece here looks closer to an 8 to 9 ounce. But anyway, I redesigned it a little bit. First thing I did is I split the belt loop in half because this is going to get stitched along here and down the middle, which means if I do the belt loops first and it was one big flap like this, then I wouldn't be able to get the stitch line down the middle because it'd be covered by the flap or the belt loop. So I split it in half, but that's fine too. That's plenty of belt loop there. And I tapered them so I could get to the stitch lines here. And of course down the middle. Because the belt loops are going to be attached first. I haven't decided whether I'm going to stitch them or rivet them. I'll probably rivet them. We'll find out at that time. But also, on the front piece, if you can see those lines, those dotted lines there, it was going to have 2 stitch lines. But once I got the leather cut, I looked at it and I took the parts that were going to go in here, like this piece here, and to do it this way would have made the loop way too small. But if I just made a single stitch line, then it looks like it's going to fit just right. Because you take it and you bunch it. Can you see that? Like that? And this will fit there. Do the same thing for the other side. Put it on there. Bunch it up a bit. Yeah. And this piece, it's catching right there, will fit right there. Now I wanted to fit snug because I am going to mold them after it's all done, and that'll stretch them out and form them better to the shape of what's going in them. Kind of like, you know, like wet molding a holster, something like that. But what I'm going to do right now is put some dye on them. I'm going to dye them black. I got my dye right here. I always like to shake it, make sure it's mixed up good. Okay, is that good? Okay. Now to apply the dye, I just use a dauber. Always like to start on the back side. 1 second. Piece of glass. Because what I do is after I dye them, I put them on a piece of glass to dry. If I leave them on the paper, the bits of paper could stick to it and you have bits of paper on your leather piece and it looks like crap. Anyway. Take the dauber, soak it real good, and apply it to the leather. I like to use lots of dye when I do this. I put my glove on so I don't get dye all over my other hand. Anyway, I'm going to keep this up, keep putting dye on here. Now, when I'm putting dye on something like this, and I want to saturate it, I keep applying the dye until it puddles on the surface. It'll eventually soak in, but that tells me that the leather has taken all the dye that it can. Okay, like I said, I'm going to keep this up, and we'll be back. Okay, I've got the back sides all done on this one. I went ahead and did the front side, and the way I do that is pretty much the same way. take my dauber and just saturate the leather with with leather dye. Some people will just dip dye and saturate the leather that way. I don't have a workshop where I can set up like that. And a dauber works fine for me. I'd probably just make a hell of a mess if I tried to dip dye stuff. But there's still potential to make a hell of a mess with a dauber. Hence one of the reasons I put my leather in a clamp. Now, I picked this piece of leather because it has stretch marks. And that'll give it features, natural features on the finished product. And it should look pretty cool. But like I said, I just keep putting dye on it until it puddles on the surface. And that should be enough. Well, I know that's enough because I've done it enough to know that is enough. There you go. It's puddling on the surface there. You can see how it looks wet because it is. Make sure to get all my edges. Pretty quick look over, and it looks good to me. This one's looking good. And then I'll put it on. The reason I put the piece of glass underneath all these is I can just move these aside, and that's where I'll leave them to dry. Got some bits on them there, but that's okay. Just brush off. Next up, we're going to start working on these things and attaching the bits to the bits. See you then.